following is a conversation with Sean Flannery. Sean is a veteran camera operator who's worked on shows like the Super Bowl, the Grammys, and the Eras Tour. Enjoy this conversation with Sean. I want to go back a little bit. I know you said you had started on The Voice, but I like to get people's backstory. I don't know if we've ever talked about how you started. So if you could maybe give us a little bit of how you got into film, what that process looked like, and how you got to where you are right now.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up in Southern California, and I just kind of always had a thing for, I love movies, and, I knew in my head, I was like, I want to go to film school. And so I did that. I went to Syracuse over in New York, and then immediately moved back. And I got my first job through an alumni at Syracuse. I was a PA on Mad TV. You remember that show?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then that was like I was there for a year and a half, I think. And that's when the writer's strike happened back in like 2008, I think, or 2007.
Okay.
I think it's 2008 maybe. And so, everything kind of shut down, and it sucks because that's like, I was like in the kind of scripted, not variety, but scripted world, because doing comedy stuff. And then everything shut down, and I was like a PA. So I'm like, I got to make ends meet. So I got into reality, was still shooting. So I got into reality. And then,
were you PAing for reality?
Yeah, I was PAing for reality. And then I had done like 2 years as a PA, and then again, show ended, and then was out without a job, and I got a call to be a PA on another show. And I was just like, I was like, I needed a job, but I was like, I've already done my 2 years as a PA. I really need to start trying to work my way up. And so I said, I politely was like, I appreciate the offer, but I'm trying to like work my way up. And I said no. And like 2 days later, they called me back and like, would you want to do production coordinator? And I was like, sure. I mean, yeah, I didn't want to be in the office, but I was just, at least it was a move up. And then, so I did this show as a production coordinator, and the line producer, he like overheard me just like nerding out about cameras, because I liked cameras, and I bought a camera and all this stuff, and I'd go shoot stuff with my buddies. And then he's like, hey, we're shooting, I think it was called Sunset Junction Music Festival. And like the director, they just need someone to like operate handheld in the pit. And so I was like, yeah, let's do it. So I did. And that director and I just kind of hit it off. And that director really got me into operating and started bringing me on all his shoots. And, he is funny to watch like the careers grow. Now, his name was Rick Reinholdson, and he directs Late Night with Jimmy Fallon now.
Okay.
So he's kind of like taken off, but like, yeah, he really got me into camera, or gave me my first shot at camera operating, and especially with like music and stuff like that, because he did a lot of music. And yeah, he brought me to New York. I think I said I got started on The Voice. The Voice really, that got me in the union. And ironically, the way I got on The Voice was that line producer from that show that I was a production coordinator on.
Okay.
So yeah, it's funny, like I got a job at the ski channel. So I was like shooting like action sports for a while, because I could ski and shoot and all that stuff. And then that dwindled away. And I was like, I think it was like the day that I literally kind of got, how do I say this? I kind of knew an argument with the owner of the ski channel. So I basically got fired.
Okay.
But it was just butting heads. But literally got home that day, and the line producer called me, Rick Pizzante, and he was like, hey, we're doing this show. There's these 4 people, they're in chairs, they turn around if they like the singer, blah, blah, blah. And I was just like, okay. And it ended up being The Voice. And that got me in. Yeah. And then, so that literally really jump-started my career. And then
what were you doing on The Voice? Were you?
So yeah, I was doing the Voice had because it had already been a show in Holland, I think. So they brought it to the US market. And part of the criteria was they had to have a digital platform, because they were heavy on the social. It was like one of the first shows to really lay into like the social media presence, like Facebook or Twitter or whatever, like behind the scenes stuff. So I was the camera operator for the digital team. And then I also was able to edit the digital footage, and we put out videos like every day, or every basically it was like a full-time job. I was either shooting or editing, but it got me in the union. And so I did that show for like, I don't know, 4 or 5 seasons, the first 5 seasons. And then I was kind of stuck in the digital spot, and I wanted to like get onto the main show or do the bigger shows. And then so Rick Reinholdson, the director that I was telling you gave me that I was doing the music festivals with, he got a show in New York it was a live morning talk show. And but after every show there was a music performance. So it was like a late night show, just It was a morning show. So I went to New York, and it was like a 3-month show. And then we'd have like 3 months off, and then we'd go back and do 3 more months on the show. And the host was Nick Lachey.
Okay.
And yeah, super nice guy, awesome to work with. And Michelle Buteau, who's like blowing up right now on Netflix with all her stuff. She's doing like stand-up comedy and specials and all kinds of stuff. But so yeah, it was great because that's where I got like my live chops, because it was a live show, and I was doing Steadicam. And
you were doing Steadicam at that point?
Yeah, sorry. So up until that point, I'd really just been doing handheld, and I had bought like the Zephyr Steadicam from Tiffin.
Yeah.
So it was like a small rig. And so it was just kind of like my training tool. And then after one season, I used the Zephyr on that show in New York. I have no idea how I was able to operate with that thing, because I was maxing out the weight with a full-size studio camera.
Sure.
And so after the first season, I was able to get a full-size Steadicam rig. And then basically I did that show for 3 seasons. And then I came back to LA. I mean, I was always coming back to LA in between the shows, but I came back to LA, and I was still present on The Voice a little bit. But then I got a couple opportunities to do like some of the bigger shows, like The Voice. And then Ron Lehman offered me the job, or the opportunity to cover for him at Dancing with the Stars. And that's where, once I did Dancing with the Stars, that's where it really started to snowball. Because anyone's told me, and Ron's the one that told me, he's like, if you can do Dancing with the Stars, you can do any show, which I found out is very true.
There's some serious choreography.
It's not just dancing, like the camera.
No, but I mean your choreography. Yeah. I've watched those, and the operating is insane.
It's like, it is insane. It's carefully planned out insanity. Like it's fun too. Like it's hard and it's fun. That's the best part. Like it's, you have to be on point. You have to pay attention. You have to execute. And it's a lot of weight on your shoulders, but it's fun because it's a challenge. So yeah, I covered for him on that. And then once that kind of started and I did well on that, then that helped me transition into getting onto other shows and eventually getting into like the Grammys and that introduced me to Hamish Hamilton, who was directing the Grammys, and he also did the halftime show. So he started bringing me on, but that was also once I got the Trinity too. So when I say Trinity too, I mean the Trinity.
You
also
had your first Trinity, right?
Yeah, the first Trinity, yeah.
Just to go back a little, when you were doing the first show in New York with the Zephyr,
yeah,
did you pitch them the Steadicam, or were they like, "Hey, it'd be cool to have this movement," and then you went and got the rig, or how did that process go?
No, so how did that go? I had been doing handheld for Rick Reinholdson, the director, on those music shows or music performances and stuff like that. And I was kind of getting bored of doing just handheld. So I knew I wanted to try. I was always fascinated by Steadicam. And so I knew I wanted to try and get a Steadicam. And so I think I got a job doing a sizzle reel for this company called T Group, who did like, if you know that show Storage Wars.
Yeah.
So they do those types of shows,
okay.
Right? And they did a show, I can't remember what it was called, but it was just a sizzle reel. And it was like, they wanted me to shoot it, DP it, edit it, like put everything together. And it was a good chunk of money. And it just worked out to that chunk of money could buy me the Zephyr Steadicam. So I was like, yeah, I'll do it. And so I went, I shot it, I edited it, and it ended up going to a series. And but I was able to get the Zephyr Steadicam. And so I had said to Rick, the director that I was doing the music shoots with, like, hey, I'm really getting into Steadicam. I've been practicing. So if you ever need a Steadicam op, let me know. And so that's how it kind of started. He started bringing me on to some of the music shoots doing Steadicam, and yeah, it just kind of, when the New York show happened, Rick was like, "Hey, I want to bring you on to this show in New York. You know, you can really get your live chops in, because I had never done like a live show up until then.
Mm-hmm.
So and they knew they wanted Steadicam, so I didn't really have to pitch it. So yeah, and that's how I ended up on that show in New York doing Steadicam, kind of learning, the ins and outs of what all goes into. And that was a very basic live show, obviously, like compared to some of the other shows. So, but it was a very good, I guess you could say, like jump into the shallow end to like get my feet wet and start figuring it out.
Sure. And then going from, so you're doing the Steadicam, you're already in the live world, which I did both when I was doing Steadicam. I started doing music videos and then went to live. Mm-hmm. And the adjustment to live from that way was a lot, because you're like, oh, I need all this extra stuff, and I've got my ears on, and I've got, and we're live. You have the pressure of also being live. So it's interesting that your first, jobs doing Steadicam were in that environment. Do you think that affects the later shows?
You mean
just in terms of nerves and setup? And
no, because I would still get, I mean, it's weird. I was just asked this like not too long ago about like if I get like nervous before Super Bowl and stuff like that, the halftime show. And it's like it's weird because like I did the Grammys, and then we did the Grammys, and then the next day we leave for Super Bowl. So it's like they're back to back basically. Mm-hmm. I mean, the shows themselves are like a week apart, but I basically go from the show of the Grammys. The next day I flew out to New Orleans, and then you have like 4 days of rehearsal and then the show. But like the Grammys, for whatever reason, I've gotten to the point where it's like I'm not that nervous, because we also rehearse the crap out of it. Like we do so many rehearsal passes for the like shows like the Grammys and Dancing with the Stars. You rehearse it over and over and over. And then there's Super Bowl, where it's like it's only a 12-minute show. So in theory, it's like, it's okay. It's not that long. It's not like a 3 hour, 4-hour award show with like 18 music performances. It's one performance that's 12 minutes long. But it's like you step out onto the field and you're just like, oh damn, like it's massive. And that, in comparison to how many people are watching at home, is just like that big. Like, so that puts it even into another, realm of like just how big this show is. So like your heart kind of beats. And then like, honestly, I've told people like, once the show starts, I just kind of zone out and it's all good. But like leading up until that first like beat of music drops is like boom, 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 boom. So it's, but then it's funny because like you were saying, going from like music videos to like live, it's like it's a huge I guess there's a big not learning curve, but you know what I mean? Like there's a lot of other things to take into account, I feel like. And then like going vice versa, where I was like doing live and then I would go do like a music video or a commercial. I did a commercial last week for like Jared's jewelry or something.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Yeah. And we did like, I think a 30-second take maybe. And like, okay, go set it down. I want you to rest. And I was like, I can go again. Like, we can keep going. And like,
you could go again. Yeah. I know some operators would be like, oh, thank God, please let me put it down.
Yeah, right. And it's like, but it's like, when you're holding the rig for like 3 hours and then you do a 30-second take on a commercial, like, no, let's go again. We're in the vibe. Like I can keep going. So but that still being said, what I find on those types of jobs is like, which I love, is the attention to detail and framing is so much more acute. Like it's like it's got to be perfect. And so it's like mentally, I feel like maybe there's a little bit more pressure there, because you're like, even if you're off like that much, it's like you hear stories like David Fincher. It's like, no, like it's here, but it's got to be here. So it's like, I find that's the difference sometimes, going from the live world to like more of like a narrative or like a commercial type of job. But yeah, they both have their difficulties and their nuances that you have to adapt from one job to the other, essentially.
Yeah, it's funny. It's different kinds of pressure, and I never worked a show as big as Super Bowl. But when you're live, you feel the pressure of it's live. So if I mess it up when I'm red, everyone's going to see that I messed it up. Where when you're doing a commercial, there's only like how many ever people standing behind you, but it's almost weirder because they're watching, like what you're saying, they're watching so intently on what
and
you're
it's
doing.
very intimate.
Whereas the live is like bang, bang. Like, maybe I got bumped and then it cuts to the next shot.
Exactly. Like if you get bumped, it happens so fast that no one notices or something like that. But no, that's exactly. And it's like you said, on a commercial, there's like less people maybe behind you, but it's much more intimate. So it's like, it's if you mess up, right away. Like they'll tell you right away.
Oh yeah, if you get bumped, we gotta reset it.
Yeah.
Like, damn.
Yeah. And sometimes it's like not even your fault, but it looks like it's your fault.
Right.
And
they don't
like,
know.
You don't even, and they don't know that. And it's like you don't even try and defend yourself. You're like, yeah, my bad. But I got bumped by a set photographer one time on a Beyonce video. I was pissed, dude. I landed a oneer. It was like a long shot.
Oh, and it was a oneer?
It was like a long, it wasn't a one. It was like a long shot though. And it was like a lot of different, like, okay, here, you make sure you get here. And it was with the DP, oh God, that does Euphoria.
I can't remember the name, but I mean, huge cinematographer.
Huge First time. Yeah. And I was like, oh, this is awesome. And I landed the shot, came to a perfect static as she was getting on a bus, and the set photographer stepped in to get a shot and bumped the rig. And they were all back in Video Village, so they didn't see that. But he looked over, I'm like, I'm sorry. I'm like, I was so pissed off. And it's like, I can't throw the guy under the bus, but I'm like, dude, like, do you have any idea how bad that made me look?
Right, yeah.
But it's like, it's those types of scenarios sometimes that you're just like.
That's a hard moment to not be like, go into your comm, be like, photographer, hit the rig. Like,
yeah, you're right. Like, yeah.
That's tough.
And it's like, and that was like, you're like the new guy on set. Like they had all worked together.
Oh, okay.
Like all the grip department, everyone, they were from Euphoria. I was like the new guy on set. So it was like my first day and I was just like, that sucked. But yeah.
Photographers, man. So I want to talk, I mean, we were already talking about Super Bowl. I think as far as live shows go, I don't know if there's a bigger stage. I know it's 12 minutes, but the whole world is watching the halftime show. Even when you talk about Super Bowl, people are like, "Oh, I'm just going to watch for the halftime." Especially there is that like crowd of people that's like, "Oh, I'm just going to watch for the halftime." So you've done 4 Super Bowls now. Yeah, 4. And then have they all been with Funicular Goats?
Yeah, they're like the tech management. Yeah, tech management. And then Hamish has always been the director since I've done it. Hamish has done, God, I think he said I forget how many, don't quote me, but I think he said he's done like 18 Super Bowls. He's done a lot. And then Haley is his AD and Rod is his TD. And Dylan, it's interesting because you have, we kind of had like, it's interesting when you work with the what do you call it, the artist team, because they typically will bring on like their director or their DP who works conjointly with the director and DP of the live side.
Okay.
So it's a weird kind of, it's nice that it happens like this, I feel like, or it's starting to happen like this, where you get this cinema and live broadcast worlds coming together. And you're kind of learning things from both sides, really. Like, when you bring a DP or a director that's never been into a live control room or truck, and they've only been on like a movie set or something like that, and they see what goes on, they're like, you just kind of see it in their eyes, like, oh, wow, this is...
It's like another planet, yeah.
It's like another planet, right? But, I forgot what the question was.
Well, I was going to ask, so when you do this, like, I mean, I feel like this would apply to, because you've done the Oscars and the Grammys, and when you're doing shows like that, what is, for you, the operator, what is kind of that preparation look like? Like from down to when, hey, I got the call, I'm doing, like how far out do you get the call to, how you're prepping?
Usually it's like, for Super Bowl halftime, it was like I feel like we usually get the call like about 3 to 4 months in advance. And it's always a soft hold because they're still figuring out the creative. So they don't know if they need a Steadicam, or well, they usually always have a Steadicam, but whether or not they need Trinity or whatever, or how many Steadicams they need or how many Trinities they need. And now I realize what you had asked me is about Funicular Goats. So yeah, I had worked with Funicular Goats on all the Super Bowls, and they're the ones that kind of have figured out like the streamlined way of integrating these cinema cameras that we use on the Sony Venice and these lenses into a live broadcast scenario where the truck can still control the painting and the look of the camera. But on this last one, they did the DIT was doing like a live color grade, which was I don't know if they had done that yet until this. Well,
I think I follow him. I saw him posting. I think it was the first time they've done that live.
I think it was. And it was, I mean, it looked awesome. Like, and that's like what I was talking about earlier, where it's like you get so used to, Dancing with the Stars or whatever, or these Grammy shows where you rehearse. We get to rehearse the halftime show, like, I don't know, maybe 6 times.
Really?
Over the course.
It's so 6 runs, and then it's like, hey, we're going.
Well, pretty much, because you got to figure travel day is usually on a Monday. So we get to wherever the Super Bowl is on Monday night. We rehearse Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And we can't rehearse until about 6 p.m. at night because they don't want us on the field because they're getting the field ready for the game. Players are there practicing sometimes. So we don't get to rehearse till about 6 o'clock at night. And usually that's enough time to do 2, maybe 3 passes.
Are you doing overnights or are they letting you go?
No. Oh, we have to be out usually by like 10 o'clock.
Oh, so it's like short 4 hours. It's like
4 to 5 hours.
Wow.
Like I don't think we've ever gone past like 11 o'clock at night. And our call times are like at 2 p.m. But we don't get on the field to rehearse until about 4 because we'll do camera meetings, notes, check the gear, make sure everything's good. But as far as like actually getting on the field and rehearsing, we usually don't do that till like 6:30. So yeah, we'll get like 2, maybe 3 passes. And that's on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Then typically Friday, Saturday, we're off. They don't let us on the field at all. So because they have to do RF wars where they test all the RF to make sure nothing's like, no signals are interfering with each other from the halftime show, from the game, from outside the stadium. In the last case of the Super Bowl, POTUS came. So it was like threw another wrench into the chain. And it was like, huh. So everyone was like, is any of our stuff going to work?
Right.
Because Secret Service is coming in and scanning all the frequencies and using their frequencies, and they won't tell you what their frequencies are.
Oh my gosh.
So it's like, well, here goes.
Right.
But so, and we have Friday, Saturday off, and then Sunday we don't get to rehearse. And then Sunday night or Sunday, during halftime is the show. So it's not a lot of
It's
rehearsal.
not as much as you'd think. And then
no, and so not just to rehearse the camera or the talent side, but to go what we were talking about with the live grading. Like they only get so many opportunities to see what the lighting looks like, or what to like dial in the looks of the camera in the actual conditions. And we lucked out this year because the Superdome's inside, so obviously the lighting condition is consistent, right? But where were we last year?
You were in Vegas.
We were in Vegas, right? Yeah, and so light still kind of comes in.
Through that top, it kind of moves over.
Yeah. And then Arizona, what do you call it? For the Rihanna halftime show, the dome is open, so that was also kind of changing constantly. So this was like I think the first one that I've done where we've been inside, and it's been consistent lighting conditions. But again, you only get 2 or 3 shots to like really look at it.
It's way less than you'd think. I think
way less.
Anybody who watches that show is like, oh, this has got to be going on for weeks. From the creative for you, the Steadicam, because I mean, your shot from what I was watching is in a lot. Like they're cutting to you a ton. When you show up for rehearsal, have they already kind of mapped your camera movement? Or are you like, hey, maybe we should do this?
And I should say, so typically the last 3 Super Bowls, they've brought Tori, the other Steadicam operator, and myself in maybe like 3 weeks before the we go to the location of wherever Super Bowl is to do like a walkthrough, not even with camera, maybe with just our phones, just to like know what our shots are, knowing that it's going to change. It'll or at least deviate a little bit. So yeah, we like with this last one for Kendrick, and especially with Usher in Vegas, I think they brought me out probably a couple times beforehand, especially just mostly because of the roller skating stuff that he did. Because that was like, we had to be safe. At one point we were skating with him and trying to do it, but it was like, it wasn't a big enough stage. And I was like, they're not moving that fast. There's really no reason to be on skates. Like I can keep up with him. So, but those are instances where, yeah, they'll bring out myself and usually the other Steadicam operator to rehearse in advance offsite. So, but it's usually just 1 or 2 days.
I mean, still not as much as you'd think. In the one in Arizona, it was Arizona when it was Rihanna.
Yeah.
For that one, you have the role, and everybody talked about the role in that show. Right. Was that written in for your camera movement, or was that your?
No. That one was, yeah. Did I tell you that story? Or?
I think we talked about this briefly, but for talking right now, yeah. Can you tell me about that?
Yeah. So I had just gotten the Trinity 2 about, I think, a week and a half before the Super Bowl. I had just used it on the Grammys, and that was the first show I'd used it on. So I was still learning it, but I didn't do any roles on Grammys. We had one planned, but it didn't happen because the artist that we were going to do it with backed out and didn't perform at the show. So anyway, then we go to the Super Bowl, and it was Rihanna, and there was a moment, and it's one of my shots where I'm going through all the dancers, and they're just like kind of splitting, and I'm just going right through them. And I was like talking with Dylan Sanford, who's the DP. And I was like, hey, and he knew that I had the Trinity 2, and we were all kind of excited and like looking for ways to utilize what it could do. And so we pitched to Hamish, the director, like, hey, what if as I'm going through the dancers, like we do this roll, I can roll it and it'll be like the beat was like building. So it seemed like the right time to do it. He was like, all right, yeah, let's try it. And I was like, okay, cool. So, again, we got like 2 or 3 rehearsals. And so I didn't get to really test the roll.
Did you program it, or were you?
I programmed it, yeah. So I programmed it on a button. And so that camera build was massive. It was the Venice with, if you've seen the Canon 15-120 Cine servo.
Yeah, those are heavy for shorter servos. So yeah.
And like the Venice is a heavy camera, but it was still front heavy.
Was it like, Venice 2? Venice 2?
It was a Venice 2, okay. Yeah. But like a Venice 2 with the AVS transmitter, a bunch of like paint protocol controls, an MDR, everything, and it still was front heavy. So I had to add this massive weight to the bottom. And so I went to do that shot going through the dancers during rehearsal. And what I didn't think of is as the camera, I hit the roll button, and that weight that was sticking off the bottom got stuck because I was in javelin mode, basically, through the dancers. So that means like, the Trinity is like basically horizontal to the ground. And so as the camera rolled, that weight got stuck on the, the bars that come off the Trinity head. So it didn't work. It got stuck. And I was like, oh, shoot. Okay. I can't roll unless the camera is like perfectly upright and down, because that weight will get stuck. But what happened is after that first mess up, Hamish was like, no, let's not do the roll. And I was like, okay. And so, I was like, all right, rolls out. And so then the next pass, we were rehearsing, and Rihanna wasn't there for this. This was her choreographer was standing in. And so we were rehearsing the second pass, same night. And the part where I'm leading like profile to Rihanna, and I basically stepped down these massive, it was like probably like a 1.5 to 2 foot step. And as I stepped off, I accidentally hit the button again. And it rolled, and it didn't get stuck, and it just rolled. And then like I was like, whoops, and I ended the shot. And then Hamish was like, well, that worked, but yeah, let's take that off so that doesn't happen again. I was like, okay, sorry, my bad. I just forgot to take it off. And the next day I came in, and Hamish was like, hey, so yeah, Rihanna saw the playback and she loved that. So program that again, and it's in now. So that's how it ended up. It was a complete accident. Like
Just from you step and hit the button, and they're like, that's...
Yeah, because my hand was on it, and it was a massive step. Like, I mean, it was like, I don't know, like, if you can see, it was like a huge step with the rigs, and I was stepping from up on the stage all the way down. It was 2 steps like that. So as I hit that first step, I just accidentally clicked the button because I was gripping it so hard, and it just started to roll, and I happened to like keep it framed. And I was just like, oh crap. And then, yeah, Hamish was, so she was like, oh, that's fire. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, so that's how it ended up. It was definitely, we had wanted to do a role, but we wanted to do it at a different point. It didn't work out, so it was out. Then we accidentally did a role at the right point, and Rihanna saw it and liked it, and so that's how it ended up in the show.
Yeah, I mean, that shot was awesome. I feel like everybody was talking about that role after.
Thanks.
That.
It was. Yeah, that was, and it's, it was nerve-wracking because it was, again, it's like you're hoping. So we started rehearsing it for the next 2 days, and it was fine, but it was just like there's still always that. If I didn't have the rig perfectly vertical, it would have got stuck again. So it was like trying to make sure when it came to the show, making sure that it was like how it was supposed to be, so I didn't get stuck on live broadcast television.
Yeah, however many people watch the Super Bowl.
I'm just like, cut off me. So, yeah.
I mean, that kind of leads to my next question, because when Trinity came out, especially the one, it was a lot smaller head. And I remember this was probably right around when I had met you. Trinity 2 wasn't out yet. And I think you had ordered it maybe when I met you. Trying to get the Trinity to work in the original broadcast, were you working with other people to figure out like the workflow and how to build the cameras? Because now I feel like maybe it's a more streamlined process, but you tell me.
Yeah, and I mean, like there's definitely a lot of people that helped with that. It was, so I had already been eyeing the Trinity, like, because I had been doing Steadicam, and I saw what Ari Robbins was doing with the Trinity, and I saw what I forget his name, 1917 operator.
Yeah, from the UK.
Charlie.
It is Charlie, but it's Charlie. Is it? No, it's not Charlie Phillips. This is a disservice.
Yeah.
We'll find his name. We'll put it in.
Yeah, I know. Awesome operator.
Yeah.
He ended up going on to do like Mission Impossible and everything. Anyway, I saw what they were doing with the Trinity, and I was like, I really think there's a way to bring that into the broadcast realm. And like knowing that obviously it was going to be heavier, it's definitely a little bit bigger footprint than a regular Steadicam. But before I pulled the trigger on purchasing the Trinity, I was like, well, I need to make sure it can even fit the equipment that we use. So Ari, a couple reps from Ari went with me to Aerial Video Systems, AVS, and we were able to build out our typical broadcast camera package. And we just checked it out. We're like, can this fit in the ring? And it fit in the ring of the Trinity. We're like, okay. And then the next step was, so that was good. So then the next step was like, okay, so how do we do zoom and focus? Because we're usually tethered to do zoom and focus, but with the Trinity head, it's like moving all over the place. So you're kind of like, how do you do that? So I talked with Eric Anderson at G-Zoom, and he was able to reconfigure the G-Zoom to the G-Zoom Trinity is what he called it. And that allowed me to have zoom and focus like a regular G-Zoom, but then there was a side pod that he had designed to put the joystick in the Trinity. So that way I could basically have the tilt control, the zoom and the focus all right there at, on the gimbal. And so I was able to do that. And once those 3 things came together, I think the first show we did was the Billboard Awards in Vegas in 2019, and it was great because the director was Alex Radinsky, and we had chatted a lot about utilizing the Trinity. And I told him like, look, I got it, but I need a few months to like really kind of learn it and figure it out. And so when he got the Billboard Awards, he called me and he was like, hey, so we have a performance with Halsey. She starts on the ground. I wanted to like skim the ground going to her and then like step over her and like face down and then come back down to the ground. And then she's going to get up on her knees and then she's going to stand up and I want to rise with her. It was like perfect for Trinity going just low to high, stuff like that. And so we did it, and it worked. It worked pretty dang good. Like it was, so from there, I was like, okay, what else can we do? And yeah, so it kind of, between aerial video systems and Eric Anderson at G Zoom, and then like the directors that we were working with, we really kind of figured out a nice build to work in a broadcast setting.
Okay.
And then now Ari's done the Trinity Live, which I haven't messed with, but basically it allows you to take the transmitter and the paint box and put it down low on the sled, which is awesome.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, it takes a lot off
huge.
the head. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't take weight off the rig, but it's not as annoying.
You can make it shorter, which is nice. Because you can still get low and slide the gimbal down, but you don't have to have the post extended all the way. Whereas with the Trinity 2, it's pretty long just because the head is heavier. And so, and there's no way to mount the transmitter and stuff. For a live broadcast scenario, there's no way to mount it down low. So you can't really, your post is usually pretty long. And I usually run it with like heavier batteries too.
Right. So I'm thinking about, we're talking about the weight, and I remember you telling me a story of when you were working on Era's tour.
Oh yeah.
Can you talk to us about first just how that went, just working on that show? Because I mean, I think that's one of the highest grossing tours ever. So what was that like for you? And then if you want to talk about that particularly.
That was cool because that was I had never worked. It was Sam Wrench was directing, and Liz Zanine was assistant director or associate directing. Yeah, she was the AD. And she had put my name in the mix with Sam Wrench because she really thought the Trinity would be beneficial for that show. And so he brought myself and another Steadicam operator, Travis Hayes, on.
Oh, I know Travis, yeah.
And, it was Travis was the other Steadicam op. And we didn't know what we were shooting. We just knew. I mean, they tell you like, oh, it's confidential. They won't tell you who it's for, but it's like, okay, it's at SoFi on these dates. And I'm like, okay, so I just look up SoFi and those dates. Guys, like it's Taylor Swift. Like we know who it is. So, but they wouldn't tell us what it was for. So we didn't know it was for, then they apparently did not know it was for theatrical release either, because they weren't sure if they had distribution or not when we were shooting it. So they told us like, I think on the third day, that they had secured theatrical distribution. So it was like, oh, by the way, this is going to be in movie theaters. So we're like, oh, okay, cool. So but as far as weight goes, that was I think that was that was the Trinity 2. And that was, it's not that it was heavy because it was a Sony Venice, but we had a smaller transmitter. It wasn't an aerial video systems transmitter, but we had I don't even think we had an MDR. I think we had the High 5, or not the High 5, the WCU4. And the RF motor. So we were able to bypass the MDR. And so we got it pretty much as light as we could. And then I forgot what lens I had. It wasn't, they wanted to do a 15 to 120, but I was like, guys, please do not do the 15 to 120. It wasn't even like I was like, it won't work. Like, it's too heavy. And so I forgot, I think we used a 14 to 35 or a 19 to 90. But I didn't realize it. Basically, it was 3.5 hour show that for the first night, we were on stage the entire night. And it was just like, it was because basically the way they broke it down is they had like 40 cameras.
Wow.
But it was massive. But we were only allowed to be on stage one night. So they put us on stage the first night, and then they shot around us as best they could. And then after that, we were just in the pits, and they would reorient the cameras the next 2 nights. So that way you have 40 cameras, but after 3 nights, you have 120 angles, because you basically change the cameras every night.
Yeah.
So, but that first night I've never sweated so much. It was disgusting. Like, literally, I would take steps and my shoes were like squeezing out sweat.
Oh my gosh.
It was disgusting. So
3 hours. Did you dock at all in that show?
So the way they broke it down was I docked to put it in perspective, I didn't dock for the first hour of that show. So it was like,
that's insane.
It was a Sony Venice. It was a cinema build, 100% through. It was a cinema camera build. And I didn't put it down for the first hour. And then I think I got maybe a 10-minute break. and then I went back up, and then it was like for 30 or 40 minutes. And then, yeah, it was just like, that was the longest. After that, I did Coachella, I think, for the first time. And Coachella has like a couple of 2-hour sets usually during the day, but it still didn't compare to, just because I was constantly being used.
Right.
So it was like, it wasn't just like, oh, just like feed a shot. It was like, nope, now go do a 360. Nope, now fall. And if you saw that stage is the length of a football field.
Yeah,
it's
huge.
So, and she's all over it. Like, and props to her. Like, she's awesome. Like, she can put on a show. And I don't know how she did that so many times. I mean, it's really impressive. And she's singing. So it's like, it's not, it's not playback.
Right.
But, so yeah, it's just like trying to keep up with Taylor while she's walking all over and running all over the stage. So
on a show like that, when you get the call, I imagine they kind of treat it kind of like what we did with Imagine Dragons at Dolby. I'm wondering if it's the same thing. They kind of call you, they give you like a basic rundown of what's going on, and then it's just like, get as much as you can.
Kind of. They scripted it for the Steadicam moves, but so we didn't get paid for it, but whatever. Like, we would do off-site camera meetings, just myself and Travis, and like we were like literally trying to do. They sent us the wide shot of the show from previous shows that she had done. So, and then they actually brought us up to Santa Clara to watch one of the shows. So I was able to see the show beforehand and then be like, okay, this shot, okay, this happens there. Okay, I see where she's going. And again, hats off to Taylor. Like, if it said she was going to go stage left, she went stage left. Like, she knew her choreography, whether it was just where to walk to. I mean, dancing aside, just she would always walk to the same spot every single show, pretty much. So it was like, if they wanted me to like follow her, it wasn't like, oh, she's just randomly going to go to a spot in the audience. It was like, no, this is where she's going to go, and she would go. So she was really, really good with that, and it helped us a lot. But so yeah, we didn't rehearse. I think we rehearsed like maybe for like 30 minutes with a stand-in, like the day before the first show. We didn't do every song, and then the rest was just like having to pay attention to the shot list, and then know. Like, Liz Zanine was on headset, kind of walking us through it as we would go, because we just didn't have the time to rehearse it as much as we should have.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I mean, between that and Super Bowl, it's so interesting that like these gigantic shows, I would just think there would be more in them, but it's almost like that's why you bring the A-team people out to do the shows.
And Super Bowl is a good example because they start. It's funny. I just watched it the other night. They did a behind the scenes of the Kendrick Lamar one, and they started documenting it 6 months before. Like, they start preparing the show itself 6 months ahead of time. But what's funny is, like I told you, we have those 2 dark days before the actual show.
Mm-hmm.
We're still getting notes from like changes for can you widen out just a little bit more on this shot, or tighten in just a little bit more, or move a little bit faster here or there. So it's like,
you're getting them while you're off, not even with a camera.
No, and we don't get to rehearse it again. So it's like,
how are you queuing?
Like, okay.
I mean, how are you queuing in that show? Like, are you doing?
Haley's
telling you.
Yeah, if you listen, Haley's the associate director for Hamish on the Super Bowl, and so she's counting the beats in the bars and calling the shot numbers. Okay. So it's pretty well choreographed and timed out to Haley's calls.
Okay.
So,
but down to those notes they're sending you where it's like, hey, let's go tight. Like,
yeah.
Are you kind of just like, okay, I'll be, you're just mentally noting that, like, I'm just going to be tighter on that.
Because they're usually pretty specific. It'll be, hey, can you, like a good example was on They Not Like Us, the part where I'm carrying Kendrick all the way back down the field, and he's doing that little like slow kind of 2-step with the girl dancers behind him.
Right.
So if you watch, the first shot is like a head to toe, then they cut to an overhead, and they cut back to me. When they cut back to me, it's like a cowboy, and they cut away from me, and they cut back to me again, and it's like here on like a medium shot. And it was like, so the notes were just like, hey, punch in a little bit tighter each time till you end up on a medium shot. And I was like, okay, cool. So I went head to toe, cowboy, medium, and that's all it was. So it's like, sometimes it's like that simple. It's, and it's like, okay, I don't really need to rehearse that.
Okay.
it's never like usually a major change, because if it was, then we would be like, no, let's not risk it. Let's just stick to what we rehearsed. But for tiny things like that, it's, they can generally send the operators the notes, and they'll execute them, accordingly.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you're bringing the best on to the biggest show.
Oh.
It's not your first rodeo when it comes to doing this stuff.
Yeah.
Well, and that's kind of, the last few things I wanted to ask you about, because the show is kind of aimed at new people coming in or people trying to get into the industry. And you've worked on the biggest broadcast shows I think you can. And so my question really is, from more of a business side, it sounds like a lot of your shows have come from your relationships with directors, and those directors give you to other directors. How do you keep getting these big shows? Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say it's that. It's the networking side of things. Like, and really, I didn't get to those bigger name directors if it weren't for the operators that recommended me that were already working for those directors. I mean, Tori Livia and Ron Lehman and John Perry and all those guys, they're kind of like, those are the guys that I look up to. And so they recommend me to those directors. And then, once you're in with those directors, then they'll typically, sometimes I don't even know if it's the directors recommend you to the other directors. Sometimes you'll just get a call based on, if you do like a big show and someone sees it, they'll be like, oh, how did they do that shot? And then they'll track you down, they'll get your number, and they'll call you for their show. So
the work then speaks for itself. They're like, I want the person that hit that shot in that scenario.
Like, it's funny. So a good example is the Rihanna shot, The Roll. So 2 weeks after that, I got a call to go in and demo the Trinity 2 for James Merriman, who is directing Beyonce's last tour, because Beyonce saw The Roll and she wanted The Roll on her tour. And so I demoed it, and then they got Dave Liebling, I think, ended up being the tour operator, and he got the Trinity 2 and they did The Roll. And then Beyonce was performing in Spain, and Shakira lives in Spain, I believe. And she went to the show and saw The Roll. And then that year, Shakira was doing the VMAs, her Vanguard Award, and her performance, and she wanted The Roll. So they called me and they're like, hey, can you bring, because Shakira saw Beyonce, who saw Rihanna. So it was like, it just became like, those weren't even the directors, it was the talent.
Right. It's like networking at a way higher level based on you hit that shot.
Yeah, it's just someone will see that and they'll be like, oh, I want that for this or something, or that'll inspire, not necessarily to copy, but to inspire something similar to do for their show or their piece. So it's from a business standpoint, eventually I would say, you can get to a point where your work kind of speaks for itself and people take notice, knock on wood. And, but to get started, it was just a matter of just practice. And then when you get that opportunity, like for me, I always say like the breaking point to get into like the bigger shows was Ron giving me the chance to cover for him on Dancing with the Stars, because again, like he told me, if you can do that show, you can do any show. So like, if you want to get to those bigger shows, if you ever get a chance to cover someone on Dancing with the Stars, just be ready and do it, because that is a tough show. And and honestly, if you can handle the pressure of that show and execute the difficulty of the shots and the choreography of the cameras on that show, then you're ready to do like pretty much any other show outside of that, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But then you get those calls where it's like, hey, we want to try something that's, never been done. And you're like, yeah, let's do it. Like, that's like always, I don't want to say it gets boring. It never gets boring, but like you wait for the call to like do. I always say, I love telling the story, but like Tori Livia, I don't know if you know Tori. Okay,
I know of him. We have not met, but I know of him. Yeah,
he did Grease Live like 12 years ago or 15 years ago, and he had the opening shot, and it's a oneer. And I to this day say that that's the shot that made me want to do Steadicam. And it's like, I'm still waiting for the opportunity to get to do a shot like that, because it is such a badass shot. And it's like, it's live. So like, if you ever just YouTube Grease Live opening shot, like it's a badass shot, and there's so many little intricacies in it, and like how much ground he covered going. Like he's in and out of the sound stages. He's like at one point he goes through a trailer and like and he's like going in dressing rooms, zooming into phones, zooming out of phones, like nailing the focus. Like it's
art. It's truly awesome. Art at that point. Yeah, like you're so technically sound. You're creating. It's like
right. Yeah, exactly. And I think that's where you as the operator also can put your little, stamp on it as well. So it's like I'm always hopeful that I get a chance to like get to a shot like that. Like, I've definitely done some long shots, but if you watch that shot, like nothing to that extent. Like to me still, it's like one of the best shots I've ever seen in live broadcast.
Well, we're definitely gonna find it and we're gonna put it over this clip. So
it's like imagine the Goodfellas shot through the kitchen.
The Copa shot. I love that shot. Yeah.
So take that, but apply it to live broadcast television in Grease Live. Like it's freaking awesome.
That's amazing. So good. Yeah, we're definitely gonna find it.
And that was before there was a Volt.
So right. People like to forget. I think the Goodfellas shot was it was Jim McConkey.
Yeah.
And that was OG Steadicam, where there was just all mechanic.
That or like Boogie Nights, though, the Boogie Nights shot.
Yeah, the Boogie Nights. But that's those guys, I did most of my Steady with the Vault after like my first 2 or 3 years, because that's when it came out. And it was, makes your life so much easier. But, they never had that. And their work, you would even make the argument their work's better than a lot of the stuff you see
It's just, because it gets to, I think it speaks more to, like I said, when you get to those types of shots, I think you as the operator get to put your stamp on it. So it's not always about the technical executions of it. Like, if the horizon was slightly off, it's like the shot is so good. You kind of bypass the little imperfections and look at the other nuances that make the shot great.
Yeah, you don't even notice, I don't think. Yeah, unless you're completely Dutch. But I think even in that Goodfellas shot, there is some moments where it's not totally perfect. Nobody cares.
But you're like looking at the surroundings, like, he's going through a hallway that's like this wide. And it's like
he's throwing the rig in front of him. Yeah, it's a crazy shot.
So, those are the things that you like, I think that I aspire to get to execute someday, whether it be on Steady or Trinity. But so, I still, with the Trinity 2, with the way you can roll the head, I so badly want to do a shot where it's just like all over the place. You know what my dream shot is? When I know it won't ever probably happen, but after I saw Grease live and how they shot on the back lot of Warner Brothers, they don't really do the live musicals anymore, but I so badly wanted to do a oneer for with the Trinity. For Singing in the Rain, on the number where he's singing in the rain on the back lot with the rain machine. Like that would be so freaking awesome.
That would be a shot you'd work for. I mean, not that you're already working all the time, but you'd work forever if you hit a oneer on that shot. Everyone would want that repeated.
Right.
Yeah.
Start inverted in a reflection of the water. And then slowly,
that would be beautiful. I mean,
trademark that.
A lot to be said, like what you mentioned of, I think when people think networking, they think, well, I got to, connect with producers. But I mean, connecting with other people and your colleagues is really important. And that's how, I mean, I've had opportunities come from you and we met on a show and, people forget that, hey, if I just link with other people in my field that aren't necessarily above me, that's still good opportunities. And you make friends and relationships and, it keeps going.
I will say, once you get to the point where it's like you have family, I feel like it's hard to do, so many times like the guys will, hey, let's go grab a beer after. It's like, I got to get home to the, which rightfully so. Like I want to get home to the family. But, I definitely miss out, I feel like sometimes on the social get-togethers. And I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I just, I don't think that's a bad thing because you still communicate with your peers and your coworkers, and you still have those great working relationships that, can take you on to the next job. So,
and I think when you start out, at least, usually you're at a point in your career now and you have a family, you're definitely would be considered a veteran. And when you're a beginner, you have time and you have the ability, hey, I'm going to go to the workshop or I'm going to, I remember I was driving to LA to go to the random workshop or do the meetup or whatever. And then it's like, now I've got responsibilities. It's like, hopefully those things time out in a way where it's like, I don't necessarily need to go to grab beers with the other operators because I'm at least a little further along. But, you know, it is still important. The last thing I wanted to ask you, it's a question I've been asking everybody when they come on. From where you're at now, looking back to when you started, I say, what would you tell 22-year-old you or whatever the age you were when you were getting going? What's one piece of advice, if you could talk to that version of Sean, that you would give?
You know, I know I've said I would tell myself to practice more because I definitely feel like it's funny when I tell people now that I want to practice, they're like, no, you practice when you get paid. And it's like, no, like I like to be at home and practice sometimes. And like, cause it's like, you know, as an operator, you're always tinkering around with your gear. So it's like,
you don't want to do it when you're getting paid.
Right. Yeah. It's like, I like to not be like, you know, there's always things I want to try, just a new balance method or a new build method. And it's like, I can't necessarily do it on set because it's like you have time crunch and it's like, you got to get built, you got to go. So there's no room for like trial and error. So I would say like, if I had more time when I was younger to just like constantly try out new things, like with the gear, try out moves or write down, like I'll write down moves now that I think of in my head and like kind of save those just for future ideas and of like how to start a move or work, you know, or whatever. But I don't want to say practice, but just trial and error as much as possible. And yeah, because I definitely, I did the whole, you know, I did a lot of like the freebie jobs when I was young, trying, you know, just that's what you do. You're just trying to like build your repertoire of work and get the practice in there. But like, don't be afraid to just like practice at home and just get it. Not even if you don't have a camera and you have a rig, like like you can still like build it and just like get used to quickly assembling it.
Well, and I feel like there's a lot of benefits. I mean, we're talking specific to Steady, but it probably applies to a lot of things. You're doing it in a low pressure environment. There's no one being, like you're saying, like rush or we got to get to this. And I think when you're in that relaxed environment, you see like the nuances. I mean, we both do Steadicam, or you know, I did Steadicam. You notice like, oh, well, if I just release the grip a little bit this way, I can start this shot better. Or maybe how I walked through something and doing it in a way that I'm relaxed and I'm not worried about rushing to the next thing. You discover things that you probably aren't going to realize on a paid gig.
I feel like I do like it's gotten to the point where I'm like 80%, maybe 70% Trinity and 30% Steady. When I put on the Steadicam, I will sit on set. Like if I'm just like waiting around, I will just whip pan. I love practicing because I don't have a Volt. I just will still practice my whip pans. Like it's
the
like
hardest move to hit. I mean, in a lot of scenarios.
And it's like, you know, a lot of times control rooms, like, could you stop doing that? Because they just do my camera, like, but like, or my utility, like, do you want to set it down? Like, no, I'm just practicing. Like, it's like, it's just fun. And it's like, it's not going to damage, it's not going to hurt you. It might, you know, make the people in the control room a little motion sickness, but it's like, you know, it's those little things that you just like, I don't need to be practicing the whip pan. I don't even have a whip pan in the show, but I'm just standing here, so I'm just going to do it.
And like, if the day comes where it's, hey, we want a whip pan, and you've been doing this 1,000 times, it's like
1,000 times,
no problem. Like it's almost, you're not even thinking about it anymore of when to grip, release, you know, the whole process.
Right, 100%. So yeah, that's how I look at it. Is just practice on your own and put in the time. Yeah. That's what I mean, nowadays I like to say like learn Steadicam, turn the Volt off and learn it because, you know, just the mechanics of it without the Volt. And then, you know, and now because like it is a different feeling. Like I like the feel of not having the Volt sometimes, but then depending on the situation, I need the Volt. So yeah, or the Trinity like stabilized head.
Yeah, well, I mean, you know, specific to Steady, God forbid there's that day something happens. And you don't have it anymore. You better know how to use the gimbal by itself.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, cool, man. I mean, you're a freaking expert in the field. I loved watching your stuff. The Super Bowl performance was amazing. What's your next show? Where are you going? Where are you going next?
Coachella. Yeah.
Trinity too.
Yep. Yeah.
Nice.
So yeah.
Well, cool, man. I really appreciate you taking the time. It's great to talk to you. Haven't talked to you in a while, and this was super interesting. I think people get a lot out of it.
I'll be in Vegas, I think, in May, so I'll hit you up. Sure.
Oh yeah. So, yeah. I mean, the studio and the shop and my house is all a 20-minute radius by the airport. So
sweet.
Yeah, we'll meet up, grab beer or something.
Yeah, sounds good.
All right, man. Enjoy the rest of your day. I appreciate it.
All right. You too. Thanks, Logan.
All right. Talk to you soon.
All right. Bye.
See ya.